Welcome in Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler and Zach Lancaster back at it here on this Tuesday. It's felt like a Monday all day to me, Zach. I've been mixed up multiple times, man. Been thrown off my game with the Memorial Day holiday that we had yesterday. How was the weekend, by the way?
Very lazy.
Oh, hey, that's good.
It's very lazy. We tried to go to the city on Sunday. We had some tickets to some museums and the zoo and stuff like that. So we're like, well, we'll see if we can't try to knock some stuff out. So we go early. We go to Barnes & Noble, look at some books. We go eat some lunch, and we go to the Cowboy Hall of Fame. Packed.
Really?
Oh, my God. Like, the main parking lot completely full. They had their security guards turning cars away down the hill to an overflow lot that I swear to God had at least 1,000 cars in it.
Nah, yeah.
We left. It was so stupid. There was like, I'm not. They're standing in line all day, and then you're shoulder to shoulder, bumping into people, and like.
Finally, though, right? Like,
yeah,
wow.
Yeah, but it was one of those things where like. It was so unexpected that I didn't know how to handle the situation, because you go from not really dealing with people to all of a sudden you're like, hey, let's go to the museum. Never mind. There's a line out the door, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm excited for things to get back to normal, but I'm not excited to stand in line for things anymore.
Well, true, but it's made me stop and say to myself, look, quit, don't complain. You're about to complain about people being in the way. Don't. A year ago, this was something you would have begged for. Okay, don't do it. And that's what happened when I was in St. Louis a couple weekends ago at the Cardinals game. We were herded out of the stadium like you used to be. Giant groups of people just trying to get their way, make their way to the car.
I know, isn't that awful? And you got to sit in traffic for 3 hours.
The traffic sucked. It was awful, but I was sitting there and I was thinking to myself in the herd of people in line. I was like, nice, and if this is it.
Give me the 25% capacity.
no. And this was like 75%. It wasn't full completely, and still there was a lot of people. And this one dude coming up the other side of the aisle yells across the way, "COVID is over!" And everyone just cheers and jumps around. I mean, it was awesome. I was like,
"That's funny.
Let's go, man!" It's like it's summertime. It's now officially June, and I have officially as well felt pretty much back to normal these last few weeks. Actually, the last month, really, just getting into it.
It's weird.
It feels great. It feels
great.
We
we went to and I had to kind of rein it in a bit because we went to a shop that still required masks, and I found myself a little angry because I had my mask in the car, and I don't have a problem with wearing a mask if you require a mask. Like, that's your prerogative. If you own a business and you want to require masks, whatever. But I hadn't worn one all day, and I get to this shop, and I'm like, the mandate's been over for, 3 weeks.
Yeah.
What are you doing? And, I was like, I had to turn around and walk through the parking lot, and I was just like, I almost just didn't go back. I almost was like, you know what? Whatever's in this store is not really worth it.
That's honestly basically how I've been this whole time, but especially now, it's like, hey, if you're still going to require it, I probably just won't be shopping there, but like I said, private business, to each their own. But yeah, it's great because you're pretty much normal everywhere you go now, which is awesome.
I will say I did play a lot of the show this weekend.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
It's hard.
It is. It's actually physically difficult to do.
This is
to play.
The first baseball game I played. I think I have show like 18 or 19, and if you have one show, you have them all. Like this one is much better than all the other ones. But it's like if you have one MLB The Show, you've played all of them. So I haven't upgraded in like 3 or 4 years, but I also haven't played in like 2 or 3 years. And so like I plugged the game in, and I'm like, this is impossible to hit a ball. I'm like, I'm way early or I'm way late, and I'm grounding out, and my pitcher's, he's thrown like 74 pitches through 6 innings, and the other guy's got like 27 because I'm swinging on the first pitch, and I'm like, oh, I can't see. I will say I like how you can change the batter's view. Mm-hmm. Like I've got it on retro, so the pitcher's like super close now, and it's not like when you first turn it on, the pitcher seems like he's way far away, and there's just like a wide angle view of the outfield, and you can't really see the ball. Yeah, it's fun.
It's crazy the amount of settings they have and things you can adjust, and it's awesome. I'm as an Xbox player, first time in 100 years since they've made the game for it. So I was the same way. Couldn't hit a thing first 2 weeks I played.
I will say though, I'm not a traditionalist when it comes to playing baseball games. I go into the settings and I alter the rosters. And I have like Hank Aaron's my right fielder.
Nice. Yeah. I'm just glad they had the option to put DH across the league because I was like, that was the first. I never clicked on something so fast. This is how it's going to be next year in real life anyways. Let's just get used to it.
I will say the thing I love about baseball games before we get going is if you look really at any other game, it's whatever the rosters were. But like baseball, they constantly update the rosters. So like if the best pitcher in baseball got traded tomorrow, they would update those rosters.
That's great.
I love that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Aspect.
They do the live rosters as it happens in real time. It's fantastic. Which is also a thing with injuries too. You got to adjust, man. It's a lot of fun, really.
You don't turn your injuries off? I'm just kidding.
I used to, but you know what? I'm like, let's take it in stride.
I turn the caps off.
Oh, absolutely.
I turn caps off. I turn restricted trades off. You know, like
this is my team.
Whatever goes.
I'm going to pay him as much as I want.
Yeah.
Which it's today in the real world, it's not even that different because the massive amounts of money that are being paid.
Absolutely.
I was watching the Cardinals-Dodgers yesterday. They dropped the amount of money that's being paid to 3 pitchers alone in that system.
Isn't it crazy?
And it's it was like more than some of the caps entirety on some teams. It was just unbelievable.
Well, and if you think about it, you go back to the mid 70s, and these players, you didn't even know who they were. It's funny, like we're big into Cheers, and Sam Malone is he was a relief pitcher for the Red Sox, and someone was like, well, who did you play for? And he's like, oh, I played for the Red Sox. I was a relief pitcher. Oh, wow, you must have a lot of money. And he was like, well, I was a few years before relief pitchers got popular.
Yeah. You used to play baseball, and it was, man, compared to today's money.
I would be curious to see what Fernando Tatis Jr.'s what his salary is, long-term contract, like how many years of contracts across Major League Baseball would it take?
Yeah,
and how many years it would take to get to because you were paying players like $100,000 a year or less.
Right. Yeah.
I'm curious about that.
It's just unbelievable.
Do the math.
Yeah, we'll do some of that and have to come up with the number because it's through the roof. All right, so a lot to get to here today on the show. Frank Bonner is going to join us in about 11 minutes or so. We'll talk to him about much going on in Oklahoma State's world here, as well as OSU baseball got it done, at least for a couple of games over the weekend and into the Big 12 championship. We'll get into that here in just a minute. And then softball as well. It was a great weekend for those two teams overall for the most part. OSU baseball, so they get selected into the NCAA tournament in the Tucson regional. You're going to end up taking on UC Santa Barbara. And, Zach, you could have given me 50 chances, okay? 50. And I wouldn't have picked UC Santa Barbara to be the team that OSU would end up playing. But I will I will say this. With those teams involved there in that field, Oklahoma State got a really good draw.
They did.
Like a really good draw. No, you're not here in Stillwater and O'Brien and all that stuff. But you are in a regional where you're taking on Arizona, which is the number 5 national seed. Then you've got Grand Canyon, which brings up just the worst memories of early in the season because I'm hoping by now that they're good and won't have any travel restrictions since they're in state.
It'll be Oklahoma State coming back.
That's right.
Sorry, Grand Canyon. We got to go.
We got a plane to catch.
Sorry.
Travel restriction.
Sorry.
What a load. So that's still in fresh in my mind. When I saw them, it just made me angry.
I thought about calling you.
Did you see?
Hey,
Grand Canyon's in there.
Who does Arizona open up again, baby?
Just immediate trigger, upset. And then, of course, UC Santa Barbara. So you get a good draw, especially if you look around the rest of the bracket. You're thinking to yourself, all right, well, we could have been in Fayetteville with Arkansas, who's one of the best teams in the country, certainly. They just won the SEC, and then Vanderbilt, which I was watching their game Friday, and they were losing to Ole Miss and ended up losing to Ole Miss. So I was like, wow, Vanderbilt, okay. They are vulnerable at times. But for Oklahoma State, a good draw is something that I'm happy about. And I would have to think, Zach, that you'd be probably thrilled about that too, as far as fans in general would have to probably agree. Looking at all these teams, you're like, and you look at to where you could go potentially after this into a super regional as well. But you look at this group of teams that I just mentioned, and while Arizona probably poses the biggest threat to not allowing Oklahoma State to advance, these are still beatable teams. And at least, and I would say Arizona's involved in this too, none of these teams have faced a lineup I would argue, as potent at times for the most part as Oklahoma State's, and that's what they have going for them.
Yeah, and that's something we talked about before the show. You look at UC Santa Barbara, right? They're pretty decent record, 39-18 overall, 29-11 in conference play. But that's the note right there, is 39 wins overall. They have 29 wins in conference play. They played a ton of conference games. You look at it. They took four away. They took four away from Pepperdine, if I can talk, and then they turn around and they got swept rather convincingly by Oregon in 4 games. So you look at some of these games that they played. They split with Cal State Fullerton, and that's not the Cal State Fullerton of the late 90s, early 2000s, the dominant Cal State Fullertons. I remember, they put their, I think Louisville Slugger. It was put the Cal State Fullerton logo on bats. It was impressive. So I mean, they're a solid team. You look at what they've done. They've got 4 guys hitting in the 300s. Now one guy's he's only had 91 at bats, but you got a couple guys with over 200 at bats, and they're setting at 330 or better. So I mean, they've got guys that can really drive the ball. You've got some good talent, but you're right. I mean, you look across this region, there aren't too many big name hot ticket items that these teams have had to play. Now I know Arizona's going to be they'll be a threat. Obviously, you have to be good enough to get the number 5 overall seed in the tournament. So they're no slouch. But I like this matchup because I think Oklahoma State can get past. I think they can get past the Gauchos, and then you're most likely looking at Arizona.
Yeah,
probably not going to. I would be genuinely shocked if they were facing Grand Canyon in that Friday matchup.
Yeah, and you're going to have Santa Barbara throwing probably that big lefty. Boone is his last name there. Most likely. Now, Oklahoma State has had some trouble against lefties at times this year. He's got 117 strikeouts on the year, but he gives up a lot of hits and really susceptible to the home run ball. And that's something that Oklahoma State really likes to do offensively. If you look at OSU's game in the Big 12 championship, a loss to TCU 10-7, you still get some solid offensive production, but the pitching, and this was for both teams, you actually ran into a Big 12 championship game where you really had to have a bullpen versus bullpen type game. Yeah. And that's never what you want to see, especially as a fan. You're like, if we're coming down to all the marbles, we want our best against the best. Let's, on the mound, let's see if we can have a pitcher's duel and then pick it up from there. That wasn't really the case. I think Oklahoma State, I saw you had to go through 6 was the final number of pitchers they had to go through. And that was one of those decisions where if you're Josh Holiday, you're thinking to yourself, all right, look, we're about to get in the tournament. I don't have any big-time names to burn right now in a start. It's the Big 12 championship, certainly, so you want to go out there and compete. And I would have to think that he thought as well, if we end up going bullpen against bullpen, then fine, we'll take our chances. We like our star guys out of there if they can pick up a couple innings at a time. We like having that opportunity to go up against TCU, and we think we can win that. But you look at what happened as far as that game, and in the 5th inning alone, you end up giving up 4 walks and 3 hits, and one was a bases-clearing double. And that's not easy to overcome, especially the 4 walks. That's been one of Oklahoma State's bugaboos this year, especially in some of their relief pitching. Mm-hmm. They give it too many walks, and you can't do that to any of these teams, certainly coming up in the regional as well. Because they will make you pay. They're there for a reason. So as long as you can manage the free bases, and again, you're going to come out with your stars ready to go on the mound. It was great to see Parker Scott back on against West Virginia. He had a decent outing. He only went 4 innings, but it was a couple of runs on 4 hits. And he's just about to get, I really feel like, back to where he was, which was really good. Obviously, before the injury, Stanley has submitted himself as a closer. I think has that ability to come in and shut things down. If you get Bryce back on track, which is going to be big because you sometimes don't know what you're going to get out of him. And then, of course, Justin Campbell, who's kind of anchoring things. So the pitching is certainly there. That's still the group that you're kind of hoping, all right, we can keep them healthy, then you've got a real shot because mixing them with this lineup, that's why you see OSU as a 2C coming in with the ability, I think, to have a spot they're at right now with all that being in play, a shot at a really good run here in this tournament.
Yeah, no doubt. And you look at it, you get Parker Scott back, he throws a couple innings, you get Brett Stanley back, he throws a couple innings. But the good thing is they weren't, you didn't have to overuse them. You didn't need Parker Scott to go out and throw, 100, 110, 115 pitches. He went out and threw 4 innings. Brett Stanley threw a couple innings. You got them to see live hitting, and now you've got the week. Now, I understand that they played on Sunday, and you're going to have to turn around and play on Thursday, so you don't get a full week, but you get enough time to relax. You get enough time to rest, throw some bullpens, and be ready to go. And the good thing is, you shouldn't have to, you're playing a regional, so you're not having to play 5-6 games. You're not having to play a ton before you turn around. Now, I do like the region that they're paired up with. You look at it, you're not having to turn around and get paired up with a Fort Worth regional, or if you look at, the Stanford regional, you're paired up with Lubbock. I wouldn't want to face Texas Tech at this point. But you got Ole Miss, and I like that matchup. They're a 12 seed. But then Florida State's still pretty solid, but they're not super good. Then you look at the other two. I mean, Southeastern Missouri and Southern Miss. So I like this matchup. I think Oklahoma State, now they're going to have to step it up on the mountain. That's the big one there. But if they can get past Arizona, then I really like their chances to get to Oxford.
Yeah.
And I like their chances to get through Oxford, depending on. Because it's probably going to be Ole Miss making it through. You're probably going to go to Ole Miss, and I like their chances there too. So Oklahoma State's they're peaking at the right time. They're certainly playing their best baseball at the right time.
This is the afternoon sports drive. Coming up next, Frank Bonner will join the show. We'll get his thoughts on OSU baseball and softball over the weekend. That's next here at Triple Play Sports Radio.
Oh, screaming out at the top of my lungs, 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 tell the world that I found the one. Whoa, my baby's hotter than the golden sun, sun. Can make my heart beat like a bass drum. Listen to me now. I've been touched by an angel.
Welcome back in Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. On this Tuesday, Patrick Wheeler, Zach Lancaster joining us now. Our good friend Frank Bonner from the Tulsa World, covering Oklahoma State. Frank, how was the Memorial Day weekend?
It was going well. I guess I can see my fiance now. It was her birthday weekend, so we celebrated her birthday, went to the comedy club and stuff. So it was a good time.
Very cool. Yeah. How does that feel to say now, fiance? Are you used to that yet?
No, it's actually my second time saying it, so it's still pretty new for me.
It'll take you a bit, even after you get married. Oh yeah, my girlfriend, wife. Whoops.
New title.
We're going into year 6, and it's still my girlfriend Andrea.
Yeah, it was. It was a solid weekend too for OSU all around. And first off, let's start with baseball. And first off, I told Zach this. I was like, on Friday when I saw the announcement that they had the lineup, and then Parker Scott was going to be back in there, and that was great to see. He's back on the bump against West Virginia, and it's not a bad outing at all. He goes just 4 innings, but what he shows to me, and I think what he brings to the table, I'll see if you agree with this, Frank, is he kind of calms the nerves and just gives that team a sense of reliability, which some pitchers have that ability to do, and it's always a plus when you have a guy like that on your roster.
Yeah, and I think even I think getting news like that, at this time of the year, it's a boost for the team. No matter who you're talking about, and so I think just emotionally, it was good for the team to have that news.
Yeah, it was something they could certainly rally around and get excited about, no doubt. We've seen this team run into most of their struggles when the pitching is either just not up to par or it's not healthy, which kind of goes hand in hand. But does that remain to you the biggest issue maybe to watch out for once Oklahoma State gets into this regional?
Yeah, and I think whether we're talking about Oklahoma State or whoever, I think pitching is such a major part. I think you have to have solid pitching when you get this far in the season, specifically for OSU, and so I think it's really hard to come out on the other end if you don't have solid pitching.
I'm talking to Frank Bonner here on the Afternoon Sports Drive. And on the reverse of that, I've said this, I'll see if you agree, but with how potent their offense is, I never really get the feeling like they are out of any game. There's always this chance at any given time. It seems like they could explode for a handful of runs, and that's 1 through 9 in the lineup. And I've just always said this whole year, as long as hitting is still a part of this game, Oklahoma State this year I think is going to have their chance at some point in every single game.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you look at their last games, I'm looking at the schedule now, and they don't have, a game where they scored less than 5 innings, for the most part up until May 16th.
Yeah.
And so, they're going to get runs. And so, we just talked about pitching. If you're on the mound, you at least know that your offense is going to give you a shot to win the game with the runs that they have. And so you just got to make sure the other team, you keep them under enough, because your offense is going to score runs for you, and they've shown that all year. And so I guess that should calm you as a pitcher, knowing that, you're not going to score 1 or 2 runs in a game, and you got to try to figure it out. And so I think that should calm your nerves if you're on the mound.
And individually leading that offense, I mean, we got to take a look at Christian Encarnacion-Strand. He's been the guy virtually all season long. And, I mean, when was the last time you've seen a power hitter of that quality? I mean, it seems like for a good part of this season, he's basically been a walking home run.
Yeah, and I think it's when you've got a walking home run on your team, as the head coach, that's good to know. Especially if you can get him to come to the bat and you've got some runners on base. I mean, if you're a walking home run, one at bat could get you 2 or 3 runs with one swing, and I think that's the dangerous part of OSU, when you have somebody who can knock it out the ballpark at any given moment in any case scenario. And I think if you're an opposing team, that's part of what makes them so dangerous.
Yeah, and for him specifically, I feel like we've been it's been this way for a while, but the products out of JUCO seem to be, it's kind of like an untapped fountain over there at times, because there are players that are so good, and we see that translate. It's just hard to break in at times to Division I level. But do you think that maybe he's another good example of that, a guy that started out at a lower level, but clearly had no business being there for too long?
Yeah, and the thing about JUCO is coming out of JUCO, you can find a lot of diamond in the rough, but if you're the recruiting staff, you've got to find them, and sometimes people coming out of JUCO, they don't get found as early, like in his case scenario, and so coming in, you may not know what you're going to get, but if you can land a hot JUCO hitter, that can really change the dynamic of your team if you can get somebody who may have gotten looked over for too long.
Talking to Frank Bonner here on the Afternoon Sports Drive. Yeah, we mentioned CES. Well, how big of a lift do you think it's been to get Carson McCusker back? Because clearly, before this season, he's a big heartbeat of this team, and since he's been back, it just seems like a stabilized force in the middle of that lineup.
Yeah, I mean, I think this can be the same that we just talked about earlier. Of you want your guys back, and no matter what the production, in game is, the intangibles of emotionally having your guys back, I think is huge for teams trying to make a late run. And so, yeah, I mean, it's good to have him back and what he's able to do. And so I think this baseball club is turning at the right moment for them in terms of getting their guys back and everything.
To you, and he does this to me, so that's why I'm asking, but to you, does he give off any of that maybe sort of old-time player vibe because of mainly just how powerful he is to the opposite field? We see a lot of guys that are strictly pull, and that's kind of become the theme for hitters a lot in the recent years, but he goes so deep and does it well and so strong to that opposite field. It's something I feel like we don't see very much anymore.
Yeah, and I think that can play into their role. Like, if you're an opposing pitcher, you're used to seeing a certain type of hitter, and so when he comes up and he can change it up for you and give that old school feel, I think it's good to have that on your team. Somebody who doesn't always come to the plate as the usual hitter, and so yeah, I think it's good for them to have a hitter like that.
And then as far as other players, I feel like the importance of a guy like Kate Cabanis really can't go understated because his leadership and consistent production has been huge as well, especially here down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that he's one of the main leaders of the team, and you always need somebody.
Yeah.
I guess I know, not necessarily locker room, but in that locker room voice, so to speak, I think he kind of plays that role for them, and somebody you always need. Being a senior and being that veteran voice for the program is so important.
Do you think it's even more important, too, because you lose a guy like Houston Morrill? I mean, he's not an easy guy to replace, but, this team is really deep, and it seems like they have that, at least potential to make some of that up.
Yeah, I do think, and so especially when you lose somebody like that, players like Cade and so on are going to have to elevate their leadership and elevate their vocalness, and I think he's a player who has done that and shown that, and so, yeah, I think he's even more valuable than before.
Talking to Frank Bonner here on the Afternoon Sports Drive. As far as the draw for the College World Series and into the tournament and all that, you have Arizona in this regional, which is probably the most dangerous team in this group, but you go in, you're going to face UC Santa Barbara first. How did you feel about Oklahoma State's seeding overall with those two teams and, of course, Grand Canyon in the mix as well?
Yeah, I think, like you said, the team that first comes out is Arizona, and I think, I think they can get past Santa Barbara, but I think that the team that they're going to have to worry about the most is Arizona. And so that matchup, if that matchup happens, I think is going to be the one that they have to worry about the most. And we'll see. With baseball, it's so iffy because baseball, when we see it in these doubleheaders, you can have a blowout game on Tuesday and then turn around and beat that same team on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And so, it's not like basketball or football. It's such a game. Like, how does it go on that day type of deal? And so you just never know with baseball in terms of what it's going to look like on that particular day. But I do think Arizona is the team that obviously they have to worry about the most.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. As far as this matchup with UC Santa Barbara, and I have to think it's kind of the same way with those teams that we just mentioned. Do you think it's fair to say that you can, and it might pose a really difficult thing to really attack here for these teams, because you look at Oklahoma State's lineup and you think to yourself for the other team, all right, we've played some good lineups, we've played some good teams here, but have we really faced a lineup as talented as OSU's 1 through 9? I would have to think that might be a little bit troubling to prepare for in this scenario.
Yeah, and if you're OSU, that's the thing that you can kind of put them on their heels, right? If that lineup starts pretty strong and then you get them flustered a little bit and you get the pitcher kind of getting in his head some, and I think that can work in your advantage when you're going against a team who may not have seen a strong lineup that you have. You can get them in a fluster quick, and that could work in your advantage if you can just wear on them, by the 5th inning or so on, and, get them so rattled that, you kind of get this under control.
Let's flip it over to softball real quick. I know you were there at the game at Cowgirl Stadium the other day, and they won against Texas 2-0. How was the environment there?
Oh, it was wild. Like in terms of the energy for both teams. Obviously there weren't many Texas fans compared to OSU fans, but the Texas fans that were there, they were in it, and so the atmosphere was great, and then the pitching in that last game was phenomenal. Scott Wright from Oklahoma was there, and I looked over at him and I said, I think we were in the 4th inning at the time, and I said, this may be the quickest softball game that I've ever covered, the way that they were, going up three out. So you got to give, tip your hats off to the pitchers on both ends. But I think, what was it, the 5th inning? Yeah, that 5th inning where they got those 2 hit by pitches. I think that's what really helped OSU. That's what did it for them. Those 2 hit by pitches, and then you got to tip your hats off to the freshman coming in. And I think I said it was her, the most important at bat of her career, Hobson, and for her to come and get that RBI at an important at bat, you got to tip your hat off to her. And that 5th inning kind of did it for them.
Yeah, that was huge. So you probably had to think to yourself when those 2 runs came in, and like you said, the way Carrie Eberle was throwing, you're probably like, all right, that's it. That's all she needed right there.
Yeah, and we were talking in there. I said one run might win this game. It ended up being two, and so I think just the way that the game was going when they got those two runs, I think that's when I I started to structure my story as if OSU was gonna take it, and they ended up doing it. And so you kind of saw how it was gonna go those last couple of innings.
There's honestly, and I don't think this is a hot take. I think this is pretty much just a fact at this point. There's honestly not a lot of pitchers better than Carrie Eberle right now in college softball, and she's fun to watch dominate, no doubt. But I would think that she probably gives that team. We just talked about it with baseball, that sense of reliability and kind of a relief maybe going into a game. She has to bring that like times 10 to that softball team, knowing that whoever they face, and of course now we know it's going to be Georgia, they feel confident with who they've got out there on the mound.
Yeah, and Kenny, he said it, after that Texas game, he said his family, after they lost that second game, the family asked him, was he nervous, going into the third? And he said, no, we've got Carrie at the mound.
Yeah.
And I think the entire team feels that way, that knowing that you have Carrie at the mound, she's going to give you a chance to win the game no matter who you're playing. And so I think having that confidence in your pitcher can take you far, knowing that all you've got to do is put the bat on the ball enough times and you can win the game.
Well, and the way they played Texas this year, I think they'd just be okay playing them the rest of the season here, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, my goodness, if you're Texas, you're glad they at least got one in, right? I mean, they did beat them in the second game. So, I mean, because that's got to be tough if you lose, 7 out of 7. Man. So at least they got to get one against OSU.
Yeah, that's something else right there. And they also remind me of baseball in a way because of the talent that they do pose 1 through 9 in the lineup, and like you said, plugging girls in here and there, and it's still something they can do to come away with runs, it seems like, and that's got to be a plus. We know that you have to have balance for a team, but if you get someone like Carrie Eberle, she's dealing out there on the mound. Then you look through 1 through 9 and go, yeah, we're feeling pretty good. We're stringing together some hits. We got some base runners. Next thing you know, games get out of hand. That's kind of been the story for them this year.
Yeah, and, I mean, you can't negate the fact, like, if you look at the Super Regional against Texas, I mean, how many home runs did they hit in those first two games?
Yeah,
I think the first game, all of their runs were scored on 4 home runs, and then they had a home run in the second game, 2 home runs in the second game. I mean, they've got some hitters that can, put some extra runs on the board with some home runs for you. And so when you've got a balance of some home run hitters plus a good pitcher, you've got to believe that you can beat anybody in the country.
And that'll take me into my last question then for you is, how do you feel about this draw for them against Georgia? I mean, I know for at least one off the top of my head, there might be 2, I think, transfers from Georgia on Oklahoma State's softball team right now. So how do you feel about that draw?
I mean, it brings a little bit of extra excitement, right? Knowing you got 1 or 2 transfers from the team, and I think OSU can pull it off. I mean, it's hard for me to bet against OSU after watching that third Texas game with the way that Carrie pitched. I mean, if she continues to pitch that way, you've got to like their chances.
Yeah, I'm with you as well on that one. They just it seems like there's very few teams that. It might take a bad day for Oklahoma State at this point because they are rolling, no doubt. That's Frank Bonner. You can follow him on Twitter at Frank_Bonner2. Frank, appreciate it as always, man. Thanks for the time. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, I'll see you.
All right, that's Frank Bonner again. Covers Oklahoma State, the Tulsa World at Frank_Bonner2. Good stuff from him, as always, feeling confident in baseball and softball heading into further into the postseason. Coming up next on the afternoon sports drive, we couldn't go another day without or at least a couple of days without Tim Tebow making news again. But the question is why? Why does he keep being brought up? Can he just be left alone doing his tight end business? Well, no, he can't. Find out why next on the afternoon sports drive.
Showed you true colors, I don't like what I see. Story keeps changing, I know what that means. Know what that means, I know what that means. How'd you go from being that somebody I believed into being someone doubting me behind the scenes? Can't forgive it, sorry that I ain't never received. I mean, least you could have done was gave me an apology. But you're so prideful, yeah, prideful. Taking what you need, then blame it on me, man, that's all.
Welcome back into the afternoon sports drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler and Zach Lancaster. Getting into it on this Tuesday, the beginning of June. How does that make you feel, Zach? Are you pumped? June is here. Summer's. It's not the first day of summer officially, but I call it the first day.
Yeah,
of summer.
I've got a vacation coming up the end of June.
There you go.
We're going.
Then it's summer.
We're going to Kansas City the end of June, first week of July. So
then it's summer.
Sign me up, baby.
Man. That'll be a lot of fun. I'm pumped as well. It's always a lot of fun to finally get back into it, and it's going to be the best summer ever because we have people out and about and rocking and rolling again. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Too many crowds. Too much traffic.
Too many crowds.
Give me summer Stillwater all year round. Give me pandemic summer Stillwater.
I was going to say I did experience a nice.
You got spoiled.
Yeah,
your first year in Stillwater, your first months.
Yeah, there wasn't
nothing.
There wasn't just a ton going on and all that stuff, and there wasn't a ton of traffic.
You get a genuine traditional summer Stillwater.
Yeah,
summer Stillwater is the best Stillwater. You will absolutely adore living in summer Stillwater.
Mm-hmm. That's how it should be, man.
Yeah.
That's how it should be. Something that also is here, and this seems to be not going away. According to a Sports Illustrated report, there is now a different type of complaint about Tim Tebow. And here's the thing about Tim Tebow. Ever since he's been back in the news with the Jacksonville Jaguars, that's been the thing that's come alongside it. Is everybody in sports media, for the most part, is got a complaint with it. It's been that hand in hand this whole way. So the new complaint now is there's a lot of hype, as we know, and maybe too much hype, according to some people. And it's in this report, the complaint is Tim Tebow isn't doing enough or isn't doing anything to calm down this hype that is surrounding him and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Apparently, it's a quote-unquote distraction to the team and on some level. And I'm thinking to myself when I read this, I was like, all right, so we're now at the point where people are shifting the complaint to he isn't talking or saying enough publicly or to the media. Because the only thing he said during all this has been the normal thankful for this opportunity, can't wait to see where this goes type of spiel.
So is this an outside like an outside source saying that it's a distraction to the team, or is this an article with an inside source?
Yeah, you know how SI reports are. It's always sources close to the situation, right? I mean, so whatever that means. But apparently there's been a lot of reports from inside the Jaguars organization, and I'm thinking to myself, all right, I feel like we would have heard more of it being a distraction by now because OTAs have been underway, and all we've seen since past Friday was a picture surface of Tim Tebow, who is absolutely jacked, by the way. Did you see that picture?
Super yoked.
Just unbelievable.
So here's my thing. How is Tim Tebow a distraction for the team? Because if anything, if I'm Urban Meyer, and he already had that debacle, and I'll call it a debacle because it's what it was, with the strength and conditioning coach that he tried to hire that had, allegations or former charges or whatever it was it like domestic violence or something. Like that's a distraction. So if I'm Urban Meyer, and that was a long time ago, that's no longer an issue, but if I'm Urban Meyer and I'm sitting with a team that won 2 games last year, and I just drafted the number 1 overall prospect, maybe one of the best quarterbacks prospects we've seen in a while, he has to pan out, but I think it's safe to say that Trevor Lawrence is one of the best quarterbacks to come out of college football in a while, and you draft his, albeit a controversial pick, you draft his very talented college teammate in Travis Etienne. You brought in some talent. You're looking to have a bounce back. You've got a new staff, and now all of a sudden you've got Tim Tebow who's bringing attention to the team. But all of a sudden you're not talking about they only won 2 games last year and they got a new coaching staff, and if they don't win, is it going to be a disaster? Is Trevor Lawrence going to win out? They're talking about Tim Tebow. Like, that's not a distraction. If anything, the Jaguars are like, oh, thank God. Tim Tebow is doing what we wanted him to do, and that is to take attention away, because the best thing for the Jaguars is to work in peace, to work in secrecy. You don't want people to know how good they could be. Like, I think that's just so asinine, and I don't think it's Tim Tebow's. It's not his place to try and say, well, hey guys, listen. I don't think you should be talking about me. I find it so asinine that all these people are blaming Tim Tebow, that Tim Tebow is back in the NFL. What was he supposed to do? Tell Urban Meyer, no, I don't want to come back in the NFL? It's not Tim Tebow's fault that all these guys can't make it in the NFL. Like, well, why does Tim Tebow get another chance? You're just mad because your friend didn't get another chance. What the hell, man? You don't blame Tim Tebow.
And if they're going to call it a distraction, if anything, it's a good one.
Absolutely.
This was, we've painted...
Was it like the top 2 selling jerseys of the top 5? 2 of the top 5?
We've painted this picture a bunch of times already. This was a strategic move
100%.
That has a bunch of potential benefits, albeit some of them small, but they're still benefits.
And they're not really on the field benefits.
Exactly. They're gonna trickle down from different areas. We've said that. But I'm thinking to myself, all right, so the complaint is they think he hasn't said enough to the media or whatever. Well, why would he at this point?
Exactly.
Because if he did, it would still be taken and twisted and chopped up.
Oh, he's ungrateful for the
coverage. I mean, the way that the media has depicted him, all through sports media, there's been a very, very few exceptions. But pretty much all the way through sports media, they've ripped him since the rumors of him coming to Jacksonville, right? Remember when the rumors started?
Yeah.
It was like, oh my gosh, heads exploded. Then as soon as we found out he actually was going to get a shot, it just took off from there. People have tried to twist it in every sort of negative fashion that they possibly can, and very few have actually just said, nice. That's cool. That's a cool story. I hope he has a chance to succeed. Good for him. He's getting an opportunity. That's cool. That's all it takes. But no, it's twisted the exact opposite way, and it's absolutely sickening for me to see that happen to him because he hasn't done anything wrong. This isn't a controversial player by any means.
Yep.
Look at some of the players that have had chances to come back. Well, a lot of times, why are they coming back? Because they couldn't make it for whatever reason, and usually in a negative fashion, right? They had off-the-field issues. They couldn't stay clean. You name it. A lot of these guys.
Well, every time Josh Gordon makes a comeback, good for him.
Exactly right.
Thank God he's getting a second chance
for the 7th time. Good for him.
And I'm not saying like pot. If you want to smoke pot, that's fine. It's legal in most states now. I don't consider it to be wrong, but if it's a rule and the NFL doesn't allow you to smoke marijuana and you continue to smoke marijuana, well, I mean, maybe you shouldn't get 7 chances.
Yeah.
And when he does come back, what's he do? He gets suspended for drug use. He doesn't produce on the field. He gets suspended.
Strange reoccurring thing there for Josh Gordon, but absolutely is something that I just feel like has been you can't win if you're Tim Tebow in the media realm.
No,
you can't come out and say anything because it's like you said, he could come out and be like, it's been great so far, man. I've been out here, working with Trevor Lawrence and Urban Meyer. I've been helping some of the tight ends. We've been working together. I've been catching passes. And the next day, ESPN would say, or just for an example, of course, other people would say it too. They would say, oh, he's taking reps away from some of the tight ends.
I was about to say, you better pray to God Tim Tebow never scores a touchdown. Because if he scores a touchdown, he took a touchdown away from some deserving tight end that's trying to make it in this league.
O'Shaughnessy and Tyler Eifert, they were the guys. How could you do this? Tim Tebow doesn't deserve this. I mean,
they have families to feed.
There comes the incentive talk. That was a touchdown that could have been added to his incentives. Oh, man, I can hear it now. It's sickening.
I hope Tim Tebow is the top tight end in the NFL this year.
I hope
he goes out and hauls in 1,500 yards and like 12 touchdowns and blocks for 2,000 yards and just absolutely wins the well, he would win the comeback player of the year.
Oh yeah.
Tell me he wouldn't.
He is stacked right now.
My gosh.
I mean, that dude has been in the gym probably since the beginning. Before all this, obviously, he knew he was going to get an opportunity. Like, dude, it's unbelievable. He's at least in shape, it looks like, if anything.
And that's the thing. We've talked about it. Like, Tim Tebow, probably, unless he has just an absolute monster summer and come to find out he never should have been a quarterback, he should have been a tight end all along, he'll take, like, probably less than 20% of the snaps.
Yeah.
Like, he's not brought in to replace the tight end. You're not going to see him trot out there and the top tight end sitting on the bench not doing anything. I would be genuinely surprised if he took more than 10 snaps in the first game of the season. I think we both said he'll be on the roster. because I don't see how he's not. Unless it just comes to find out he's a terrible tight end and he shouldn't be playing anymore and they have to cut him. How much money is Jacksonville going to make off of Tim Tebow? And that's you brought him in for that. You brought him in for money, and you brought him in as an advisor, as someone who has been at multiple professional levels, who is easily one of the most spiritual people in the league. And I'm not saying that you have to bring him in so he can force Christianity on players that don't want to have Christianity forced upon them, but the guidance and the level of peace that he can bring to a locker room, if anyone could bring a locker room together, it's Tim Tebow.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why when I read this story and I saw the quotes, Breer wrote it in SI, and he was talking about the quote that he wrote was, if there's one common complaint I've heard from his past coaches about it, it's not that he's actively fueling it, talking about the hype. It's not that he's actively fueling it. More so it's that he doesn't do anything to calm it down.
It's not his responsibility
that's what I was like, what would you want him to do?
Please stop talking about me so I can stop making money off of people buying my jersey.
Exactly. I mean, you want him to go out there and beg the media to stop bringing this up?
This is so unfair to the tight ends that are already here and to the players that people feel that deserve a second chance, but they don't really want to play anymore. And we got a rookie quarterback that you're not talking about him anymore.
Talk about him some more, please.
Okay, please stop talking about me. Quit putting money in my pockets and my family's pocket.
Yeah.
Just stop.
When I read that first part, I had to reread it like 4 times. It said that it's not that he's actively fueling it. Okay, well, when you look at NFL players and storylines, look at Aaron Rodgers. I mean, look at the storylines. What do most of these players do? They add fuel to the fire. Mm-hmm. And usually teams end up complaining about it.
Which is so funny because it's the same media members that would wish players would stop adding fuel to the fire. Well, they're a distraction in the locker room. They're loud and they're mouthy and they're saying this and they're doing that. Here's a guy that's literally minding his own business. He's staying to himself. He's busting his ass in the weight room. He has a second chance for a comeback. He's not supplanting the top tight ends. He's probably going to be 4th or 5th on the depth chart. He'll be the last guy on that 53-man roster. He's going to bring unity and peace. He's not going to make a lot of money. He's not going to take snaps away. But, hey, listen. Hey, he's not telling the media to stop talking about him, okay? He's not talking, but he's also not talking, so that's a problem.
You talk about a reach, man. It's so moronic. I mean, you're telling me he's not saying enough. I don't think I've ever heard that in the NFL. He is not talking enough and trying to quit the hype because it's such a bad thing. Like, you're right, doing absolutely nothing.
Literally
this is what he gets. I can't believe it.
He's going out there. He's working out. He's mentoring younger players.
The attack is unlike anything we've seen.
He's still holding proms for special needs
that
kids.
seems to never get brought up, right?
And flying to, I think, didn't he go to like 2 or 3 a night? Like I think he goes to
everywhere.
He goes to a lot of them. And he auctions off his Heisman Trophy for 6 months out of the year to raise money. It blows my mind. Hey, listen, bud. You're not saying enough.
Yeah, and instead
we don't want you to talk, but we want you to talk.
Instead is, hey, you're not saying enough about the hype surrounding you. What a joke, man. Just continues. I hope, I'm like you, nothing but success for Tim Tebow. We come back on the afternoon sports drive. We'll get into some buy or sell to kick off the second hour here on Triple Play Sports Radio.
And I don't know how we make it out when we make out on the low. Even if it rains, you'd rather make it snow. Both you and me know we gotta let it go. Laying on the ground, wondering why it's so cold. How we make it out when we make out on the low. Even if it rains, you'd rather make it snow. Both you and me know we gotta let it go. Laying on the ground, wondering why it's so cold. Why you so icy cold? My tears can't drip. Sitting awake alone, tattoos I miss. If I was to call your phone.
Welcome in hour number 2 of the afternoon sports drive, Triple Play Sports Radio. Patrick Wheeler and Zach Lancaster. And we're going to kick off this second hour with a little bit of a buy or sell.
Are you buying?
I'd buy that for $1.
Or are you selling?
You pick up the phone and you sell, sell, sell.
This is Buy or Sell on the afternoon sports drive.
Make money, money, make money.
Buy or sell. Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio. Patrick Wheeler and Zach Lancaster. All right, so we know Oklahoma State plays on Friday.
They do.
3 o'clock. It's going to be right as our show kicks off.
Smack dab in the middle.
Yeah, so we'll definitely have live updates, all that good stuff going on. And they play UC Santa Barbara. Buy or sell. OSU in that game compiles 10-plus hits. They get a big old fat double digit in the hit column.
Oh, well, let me see here. Give me just a second. I should have been more prepared. But we were kind of being stupid during the break.
No.
So I wasn't.
No, we weren't.
So I
Come
wasn't
on.
that prepared.
We don't do much of that during the break.
What we're gonna do is we're gonna click on stats, and we're gonna go to batting, and we're gonna go game by game. We're gonna scroll down. Let's see where the hit column is. That's the fourth one. All right. So they had 18 hits, 18, 17. I would probably buy that because you look at the teams that they had more than 10 hits against, and there's some pretty good teams. They've had more than 10 hits against TCU a few times. They had 12 hits against Vanderbilt. Now there's a lot of games where you had 7 hits, a lot of 9-hit games. I would probably buy it. I mean, I think UC Santa Barbara is a decent baseball team. There's a reason that they've made the NCAA tournament, but they're not the best team in this regional.
No,
they're maybe the third best, possibly the fourth, depending on Grand Canyon. You want to toss a coin there. We'll get. I think. If everything plays out the way it should, I think we'll get our answer. Who's a better team, Santa Barbara or Grand Canyon on Friday? But I would probably do that. I'd probably buy because you look at the way Oklahoma State's been playing recently. They've been playing pretty damn good. You know, they're starting to peak at the right time. You had 18 hits against West Virginia, 9 against OU back on the 26th, 14 and 11 against New Orleans. You had 11 against Baylor twice. You had 8 against TCU this past Sunday, so I would probably buy that. I think 10 against Santa Barbara is very doable, and it's like what Frank was saying. I think if you come out against Santa Barbara, you need to come out hot. You know, you need to come out on fire, putting the ball into play. So I'll buy 10. Yeah,
they've been at or right at that number quite a bit, multiple times this year, like you said.
About a third, roughly.
Yeah, and that's great because what that does and what that shows you, and it's something that's
no flukes.
It's something that's not familiar to OSU fans by any means. You look at it and you say, okay, what about their hitting? They're so good at compiling hits. That's the thing. Mm-hmm. It's kind of, and we see this with different teams and momentum and all that stuff, but once one guy gets on and just kind of down the line, that's the mentality. Next man up. And they're really good at being able to compile hits. And I think that this is a game where you're going to see OSU come out hot early and maintain that most of the way. That means you're spreading around hits. You've got guys that are really stepping up in big-time roles. Marcus Brown's been playing well. Matt Golda's playing well again. Yeah. You got Carson McCusker, CES, Cabanis. You go down the list. Caden Trinkle, guys that are just going to – you look at them and you say, all right, they're going to get on base, and how is that? Well, usually they're finding the outfield. They're finding a way to get a hit, and it just kind of sprayed around a little bit. So I'm expecting a lot of that, especially we throw in the UC Santa Barbara. They've fallen into the category because there are teams, like, for instance, New Orleans was a good example. Mm-hmm. These out-of-conference teams that don't face lineups as tough as Oklahoma State's all season long. So they have to first of all figure out, okay, how are we going to prepare for we need to go in and prepare like this is the best lineup that is available, that's out there.
Well, did you watch the selection show?
Yeah.
I will say something that is important to note. One of the main discussions was, well, how do we use the RPI when talking about the tournament? Because you look at a lot of these teams, there were a lot of teams that made this tournament that only played conference games. Like Santa Barbara didn't only play conference games, but I think mostly conference games. More than more than three quarters of their schedule was conference. And they don't play in a great conference. You know, they're not playing Big Ten, they're not playing Big 12, they're not playing SEC, ACC. You know, they're playing, I don't even know what they are, if I'm being completely honest. But they aren't going out and playing some of the best. So you would think that Oklahoma State should be able to jump out. What do the kids say? These guys rake.
Yes, they do. They do all the time. So I'm expecting that in this first game for sure. So yeah, give me that 10+ hits.
I'm gonna alter my first one a little bit. I'm gonna take McCusker out of it.
All right.
We haven't seen a home run from CES since April 25th against Texas. Buy or sell,
Yeah.
we see him break that, and I'm sure he doesn't go into the game thinking like, "I gotta have a homer."
Yeah,
and
no.
but baseball is very mental, and I think there is a reason that he's been stuck on that 15 mark for a while. So buy or sell, we see CES go yard on Friday. Thursday, I guess.
It probably has to feel weird for him because he was hitting so many.
Yeah.
So quickly, like they just continue to come for him, and so I bet he thought to himself, and sure it creeps in. It's like, man, well, I'm not slumping by any means,
Exactly.
but what's going on? I haven't hit a home run in a while, and that is crazy. It's been that long. It doesn't seem like it, but it has. It's been since April 25th. Yeah.
25th, yeah.
He is, as they say, Zach due for a home run. And this is a great opportunity. I think he's going to enjoy some of this warm weather that they're going to experience. The ball tends to fly a bit when that happens. And this is a ballpark, if you look at it with Arizona. It plays more to outfielders than it does to hitters for the most part. There's some deep alleys, but that's nothing that's going to be different or anything that Oklahoma State hasn't seen at all this season. So they should be okay with that. But CES, yeah, you know what, I'm going to buy because I think he is absolutely due. He's going to be one of those guys that leads the way offensively. And it's been great because he's been the one that, for about 3/4 for sure of the season, and maybe even a little bit more than that, the go-to when we talk about the offense. But it's got to feel good for him to know this whole time as well. Look, I can have games where, first of all, I don't have to go yard every game, but also I can have games where I maybe I get a hit there. Some games I go without a hit, but I've got guys that are picking up the slack. Because sure it's expected of me now, but those names that I just mentioned, and that wasn't even all of them, that are able to pick up where I leave off is a big plus, and it takes some weight off the shoulders there. But I think he's due. I really do. I'm expecting that in this game at some point. Let me get a buy on a CES bomb, and it's going to feel good for him to see another one fly over.
Yeah, I think you hit it right at the start. I think the most important thing is he's not slumping.
No, not by any means.
218 at bats, and he's still hitting. He's hitting 362 on the season. I mean, that's outrageous. 66 RBIs. It's huge. So the ball does fly different in that desert air. So I think he would have a better chance to do so in this series than he would probably in Mississippi if the Pokes can manage to get their way out. He is due, but I would probably sell it. But I still think he goes, I think he very easily could have a, 2 for 3, 3 for 4 kind of a day with a couple of extra base hits for sure.
Yeah, and it's easy because he doesn't have to hit a home run for them to win by any means or anything like that. It just became such a norm for how many he was hitting.
And I think that's why I think that's what's so important, the fact that he's not slumping. It would be different if he hasn't hit a home run since April 25th and he's hitting like 117, or 170. He's still going out there, and he's still the most prolific hitter that Oklahoma State has. So there's no pressure for him. Man, listen, I got to break it. I got to break this snide. I'm struggling. I got to try to go yard every single time. He's putting the ball into play, and he's hitting the ball really, really well. So I would probably sell it because there's no pressure for him to go yard.
Yeah. So there's been a lot of talk. It's really ramped up recently about where's Julio Jones going to land. He's now the new story alongside Aaron Rodgers and, of course, Tim Tebow in the NFL world. But where's he going to land? There's been a lot of rumors about price that's going to, what's going to cost to get him. The Falcons certainly seem interested in trading him. We've known that. Over the weekend, it came out that Seattle has emerged as one of the favorites to land Julio Jones, and that, in fact, Russell Wilson has actually been in talks. Whether you want to call that tampering, whatever word you want to use, he's been in talks with Julio Jones.
I think if it's a player, man, you just let a player do whatever they want to do.
We're just chilling.
It's just bros talking on Instagram.
We're just bros. By the way, Julio did say with the whole Shannon Sharp thing, he did not know that was live. So that did, in case me as confirmation, we got it. So buy or sell that Seattle does end up being the team to add him and to get Julio Jones on this free market coming up here?
I think it's certainly a decent landing spot. I mean, you look at what Russ can do, what Russ can provide you. So I mean, you're not going to a run first, a run heavy, run first type of offense. You're going somewhere where you are going to haul in a lot of passes. And you look at the other offensive weapons, the other, especially receivers. So it's tricky because if you're Julio, you want to go somewhere that has a good quarterback and a good offense. But I don't know if you want to go somewhere where they already have a clear number one. Now, I think anywhere Julio Jones goes, I think it would be hard for that offense to be like, well, listen, bud, we've got our guys already, so you're going to be that third. You're going to be that third receiver on the list. So wherever he goes, he's going to demand looks. He's going to demand targets. But I don't know if he goes somewhere as receiver prolific as Seattle. I think it would make a lot of sense to, because I think he could have a lot of success and he would obviously bolster that offense. But I think when he gets down to it, it would have to depend on whatever other team, like if Kansas City comes calling, yeah, they've got Travis Kelce, yeah, they got Tyreek Hill. But I think that would be a better fit maybe because you got a better quarterback too. So I don't know. I could see Seattle, but I'd probably sell it.
I'm going to sell. I look at this and I think to myself, man, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
At least on paper, it looks like it'd be fun. You'd have Julio Jones, DK Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett getting thrown the football by, from Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Like, okay, that's must-see TV. But how long does that success remain sustained? Because it's not like, I just mentioned those wide receivers, it's not like Seattle's in any dire need of a receiver by any means. What they need is to revitalize the game plan, make sure Russ is, believe it or not, more involved in some of the things they do. So he's not on the list of major needs right now for them. So that I'm going to sell. A part of it, too, is, like you said, he's a guy that's traditionally, for most of his career, been the number one option. You're not going to be the number one option in Seattle. I don't care if your name is Julio Jones. DK Metcalf is a rising star, and they got to get him the ball more, first of all. Tyler Lockett's a guy who's consistently been really, really good in this offense. So there's not a ton of room for you to be number one, plus the injury stuff. It's fair that this is a guy that there's a reason as well, besides the cap hit, that I think Atlanta's ready to cut ties. They've seen some of the injuries. They understand he's not as healthy and sustainable as he used to be. So they're ready to dump him off. But so as much as it sounds like a fun landing spot, and I think it would be a huge story, no doubt, I don't think it's completely realistic. Part of it too, Zach, how I feel about the Seahawks. Look, they got to get back to Pete Carroll understanding what's going on, right? They definitely need to be a team that is more balanced, certainly, and not freak out when Russell Wilson has a bad game, because that's what Pete Carroll does. So I think they have other things to worry about. These two, will they link up someday? Maybe later down the road. It depends on how long Julio stays in the league, but I'm going to sell. I don't think it's time, as much fun as that sounds on paper. This is about, I saw the comparison today, and this was a good one to make. This is a wide receiver core that you would give an A right now. Is there really any need to go A+ with it?
That's the thing, because they've got who they need to have. It's not like they have DK Metcalf and then a couple of C-list receivers.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got some really good talent out there. So I'm going to go back to Tim Tebow. We addressed it and how he isn't addressing the national media and he's bringing in too much hype, that it's, according to insiders, which I'm guessing, I don't even know what is Florida. What are the Gators' main rivals?
The Gators, It would be what, South Carolina.
So I'm sure there's like a
Florida State,
a former fourth string South Carolina player that's managed to get his way on to the
Georgia, any SEC team you can think of as well.
Some fourth string analyst or something that he's like, I don't like Tim Tebow because I don't like Florida. I never liked him. He beat my team. So it's a distraction to the team. So buy or sell sometime this month, in the month of June, Tim Tebow comes out and addresses the haters. And he doesn't have to say, I am bringing too much hype. Just comes out and say, hey, listen, stop it. Just addresses the haters at some point this month.
I'm gonna sell because I don't think he will actually say really anything until training camp comes along and we get into some of that when it's kind of forced at that point. I don't think I'll say this. I don't think he'll go out of his way to make a big statement so the media will calm down because of the reason I gave you earlier. What good will that do for him? He knows right now that no matter, I don't really think he cares, to be honest with you, but he knows that no matter what he says, it will be twisted, it will be intentionally taken the wrong way, it will be turned around on him to make him seem like he's done something wrong at this point, which he hasn't. So I don't think it does him any good. He could come out and say the most flawless, prepared speech or answer that you would have him say, and again, with the way that the media treats him, it would be no different. If I knew that, okay, they're going to give him a fair shot, they're going to take everything he says into exact, perfect context and say, look, this is what he said, this is what he means, good for him. No, that's not going to be it, as you know. It'll be complete opposite, and we'll have 40 new news stories out of why what he said is a huge problem and confirms what we've been saying all along. I'm talking about the media here, that he's a distraction. That's what it would be. That'd be the main story. Look, this confirmed it. Exactly what he said. So it does him no good. He doesn't win in any way by saying anything right now until he's more forced into it, because certainly the Jacksonville, I would think local media is probably sitting around every moment of the day waiting for him to finally say something, right? They got to write stories about it and all that stuff too.
Think about how lucky the Jacksonville media is, because we're fixing to get into a dead period. We're fixing to get into the second and third week of June. We're going to get into the first couple weeks of July, and there's not going to be anything going on. You're going to be writing about like former players and their favorite movies or pet names, and now Jacksonville's like, dude, not only did we get the number 1 overall draft pick, the number 1 quarterback who's going to be eyes on everyone him, we also have Urban Meyer.
Yeah.
But we got Tim Tebow.
Yeah.
They should never complain about having a shortage of things to write
the
about.
The storylines out of that organization alone, you've got endless content.
I've seen a bunch of GIFs on it. Isn't Urban Meyer now like a wrestling meme because he like handed the guy the laptop? I don't even know who. The only person I know in that video was Urban Meyer.
No, Jacksonville is, and the writers are full. I mean, they've got plenty to talk about and write about. But they're still, at the same time, they tell you, but we haven't heard from Tim Tebow. We want to hear from Tim Tebow. Like, dude, calm down, man. You're going to get your chances. But it makes no sense. Also, it makes no sense for him to come out and give some statement because it's just going to be taken the wrong way.
Yeah, and I'll sell it, too, because that's not really what Tim Tebow is.
That as well, yeah.
I think once we get to, like you said, once we get to training camp, if there's... And I think it'll happen. I think he'll make the roster. But once we get there and there's a legitimate threat to the other, fourth string tight end or whatever that Tebow's competing for a position for, I think he could come out and be like, hey, listen, because like if we're at this point the 1st of June and it's still a massive story, when we get to the end of July and training camp is just right around the corner, that's going to be, because I think once we get to August, we'll be back to full bore, We're bringing fans in to watch, and we've
Pre-season,
got we've got 30, 40, 50 media members circling around to talk to Trevor Lawrence, and there's going to be a lot of attention on Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow's going to take like 5% of the practice snaps, and the media is going to be like, hey, we need to talk to Tim Tebow. Then it'll become a distraction.
Let me ask you this. When he does sit down for that media appearance, is it going to be where he, before they even ask a question, he's like, let me just get this out of the way, and he addresses it, or is it going to be the first question inevitably that's asked about all that stuff?
That's what's tricky, because I think Tim Tebow would just roll with the punches. He would give answers, and he would give what needed to be gave, but I think he would do that, and I don't even think it would be him. I think Tim Tebow's going to have a publicist, and I think that how many fourth string tight ends are going to draw more media than outside of your quarterback any other player on the roster? It doesn't happen. So I would think that either Tim Tebow's going to put out a release before practice like, hey, listen, this Tim Tebow's team here. We know that Tim is a hot ticket item. We know that you want to talk to him, but let it be known right now that if you come in and you ask about this topic, or this topic, is not going to get answered. So just be aware of that. Or I could see Tim being like, hey, listen, I'm going to come out and I'm going to say this right now. I'm not going to address any issues about distractions. I'm not here for that. I don't think I'm a distraction. I'm not here to take snaps away for them. I'm here because I was asked to be on this team. I was given another opportunity, and no one in their right mind is going to turn that down.
This is the afternoon sports drive. When we come back over the weekend, more tug and pull and push and pull and whatever you want to say from the Aaron Rodgers Green Bay Packers saga. But which side is winning now? Find out next. Afternoon sports drive.
Whoa.
Staring as I go, I gave until my soul hurt, and never told them so. They're watching as I fall, somewhere down below.
Welcome back in Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler and Zach Lancaster here on this Tuesday afternoon. So Aaron Rodgers and the Packers continue to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Over the weekend, Matt Schneidman with The Athletic had a report out that Brian Gutekunst, the general manager there for the Packers, quote, will not trade Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, cap relief becomes more available if you did the trade today. You know, we talked about that all the time is, hey, June 1st date's coming. Well, it's June 1st. And we talked about the cap relief and all that stuff. So there, of course, was the date bearing down. And he's like, no, we're not going to get rid of him. Now, stop me if you've heard that before this year, Zach.
Stop.
We're not going to get rid of Aaron Rodgers. He's not going anywhere. All right. So on his signing bonus right now, still left is a $6.8 million that he would have to be paid back. Mm-hmm. And so clearly for him, if he decided to not play and just retire, if it's true they're not going to trade him, that's a costly decision. But it's something that Aaron Rodgers clearly has made a lot of money in his career, and I would have to think that post-football career is probably going to treat him pretty well too when it comes to cash flow. However, if it comes down to this, will Aaron Rodgers end up staying for you? Because if it comes down to him saying, and officially this day it's like, look, we're not going to trade him, and they actually are dug in, the Packers dig in, and they refuse, and they're not going to do it, does he retire, or does he go, you know what, I did everything I could, I was as cryptic as I possibly could be, I went on and did the thing with Kenny Mayne, and I said what I said, the receivers weren't showing up for OTAs, I did everything I could, but it wasn't enough. It's basically like a tip your hat, but never would. Obviously, tip your hat to the Packers. You get the best of me in this one. I will continue to play. I won't be happy about it, and I'll let you know, but I'm still going to play because it's football, and I still feel like I have a lot left in me.
I think if he were a younger player that didn't have a close to 20-year career with a Super Bowl and multiple MVPs and God knows how much money he's made in endorsement deals. If you're a kid that's like 26, 27, and you're running into this issue, and then they're like, we're not getting rid of you. Like, you either leave or you play for us. Then maybe, I could see something like, but I feel like I think he's pretty dug in. I think he would look really foolish. I think that'd be a bad look for him to be like, well, I tried my best. Yeah, well, I'll come back. I think if they meet his demands, they get rid of Gutekunst, which at this point
it's not going to happen.
Probably not going to happen either. They're pretty dug in too. If they meet his demands, I could see him sticking around. But I'm still in the camp. If you're Aaron Rodgers and you don't want to be there, it doesn't make a lot of sense to be there. Like, there are some people that's $6.5 million is like life-changing money, but Aaron Rodgers, not even just money he's made. What was it, like $200 million or something, $200+ million, close to $300 million that he's made over his career just in football, not including State Farm and all the other endorsements that he's done and the money he's made. Like, he's set. He'll be a game show host somewhere. Like, he's gonna be on TV. I think he'll do just fine. I could still see him because I think he still has some football left. I don't think he's Tom Brady and he's gonna play another 7 or 8 years. But I could see him retiring, and once he retires, he's not going to make that $6.5 million. he'll start contacting other teams and be like, hey, still got some left in the tank. Sign me to a contract. Because at that point, Green Bay's not going to get anything for Aaron Rodgers. They'll get $6.5 million back, but they're not going to get a couple of first-round draft picks. They're not going to get a quarterback in return or a top defensive player or a top offensive player to go with Jordan Love. They'll get nothing but $6.5 million. And if you're Aaron Rodgers and you're that spiteful, that's what I would do. And then you just go play football somewhere else for a couple of seasons, and you make $35 million over a couple of years, and you retire at the top of the league.
I think Green Bay at this point is ready to make it seem like this was all bluff from Aaron Rodgers, and they're calling it. And I do, in a way, applaud them for digging in, and making sure they stand their ground on this.
Expect nothing less.
Yeah, and that's look when he brought up the whole "I'm not coming unless you trade the GM." Not trade the GM, cut him, release him. That was never going to happen. When that was said, it was like, well, we detailed why that wouldn't happen, and it hasn't. And for them to say that, hey, we're not going to do it, that means, okay, we're going to call Aaron Rodgers bluff. He's either going to play. If he retires, that sucks because we're stuck with Jordan Love and Blake Bortles, and oh my gosh, Packers fans are crying as they hear that. But that's what it would be. But I'm going to say that he does end up playing with Green Bay if again, these are the only two options he has left, okay? If they really do refuse to trade him, I think he picks coming back over retirement, although a part of me could completely understand, like you're saying, where he's like, I'm done, because if he does come back, to me, yes, he kind of looks like a big, whether it's true or not, he looks like a big crybaby this whole time that was demanding these things, and none of it really went his way. He got some of the wide receivers, clearly didn't show up for OTAs. We talked about that Friday, but they didn't show up, so maybe he's got some teammates, obviously, in his corner and all that, but I could see him doing basically justifying it with, look what I did last year. I feel like I can do that again. I feel like I can play at that level again with this team that we have because it is still a really good team. And I'm going to come out here. I'm going to ball out. I'm going to do everything I can. But at the same time, he goes through the entire season. Every chance he gets, he's ripping the GM. He's doing as much to bring negative light on him as possible. They might even find a way to get a couple of stories out there of what happened that he didn't like. It's basically a bunch of middle fingers at the organization the rest of the way through, kind of like he did last year. But Gutekunst, out of all this, if that's the case, and he's won big time, he could care less. If Aaron Rodgers is going out there winning games, he doesn't care how he talks about him because it's not affecting his bottom line in that way. So I do give them credit for at least right now standing some ground and not dealing him up to this moment because I did think that he was potentially on his way. A lot of that evidence coming from, it seems like, the organization was at some time ready to cut ties as well in this last season or so before this MVP season with Aaron Rodgers because too much coming out of that camp that made it seem that way. So it's still clearly an ongoing story. I don't think a ton of people would be extremely shocked if he did end up somewhere else at this point. This could be all fluff. However, it seems like right now the Packers are like, we don't care, man. You'll either do it or you'll retire. It's no skin off our nose at this point, although they do know. That's kind of like a brave face he put on. And backstage, he's like, Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur, they're like, man, we're still the Packers, but Aaron Rodgers, Blake Bortles, and Jordan Love, oh, boy, what a drop-off.
And that's the thing if you're Aaron Rodgers, because there's no question that this is what Green Bay is doing. Like, Green Bay is trying to force Aaron Rodgers to come out and be like, well, you got me. You got me. Aaron Rodgers is doing the exact same thing. He's sitting there thinking like, well, I don't want to be there. And you're saying you will not trade me. Well, good luck with Jordan Love because it ain't me. He's not an MVP caliber quarterback.
And if his goal was to basically screw the Packers, this is the best way to do that now is, if this is the case, retire and leave them, like you said, with Jordan Love.
If he does come back, and let's say we get to the end of June and Aaron Rodgers is like, well, really thought about it. I really prayed over it. I haven't talked to my family over it. I think I am gonna stick around in Green Bay. I could see him being like, all right, you don't want to get rid of the GM. Let's restructure my contract a little bit. Let's get me some more money, and I'll play 2 more seasons and we'll call it good.
Yeah.
But I don't want to ever deal with a GM. I'll deal with someone else, but
We'll never speak to Gutekunst. I don't even want to hear his name. As long as I can do that, fine, I'll find a way to play with you guys. Yeah, it's still an ongoing mess, but we are sitting here now on that June 1st date, so it's a story to keep an eye on. We come back here on the Afternoon Sports Drive. We'll say goodbye and tell you what we learned coming up next. Triple Play Sports Radio Network.
Feel like I'm gonna puke, cause my taxes are due. Do my password begin with a 1 or a 2? Been a hell of a ride, but I'm thinking it's time to grow.
Metronome.
Man, I'm up to something. Ooh-dee-la-dee-do, thank you all for coming. I hope you like the show, cause it's on a budget. So ooh-dee-la-dee-do, yeah. Come on, here we go, yeah. Come on.
Here we go.
So put your best face on, everybody pretend you know this song. Everybody come hang. Let's go out with a bang.
Welcome back in Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler and Zach Lancaster as we get ready to say goodbye for the day. Before we do, we're going to tell you what we learned.
The day is coming to an end. Time to find out if these two got any smarter. Let's find out what the guys learned today on the Afternoon Sports Drive.
Well, I learned something today.
I learned, Zach, you remember, seems like forever ago, when Major League Baseball said we're gonna take the All-Star game away from Atlanta.
Uh-huh.
And it's currently, at this time, supposed to happen in Colorado, now in Denver. Well, they are now facing, Major League Baseball is facing a giant lawsuit. The Job Creators Network has filed a $100 million lawsuit against Major League Baseball, and in their list of demands, part of it is that they return the All-Star game to Cobb County there in Atlanta.
That's a lot of cheddar.
It is, and it's for, as they said, damages to local and state small businesses that had, first of all, already been impacted by the move by Major League Baseball to move it, and that includes, I saw the number, I think they said, let's see if I have it, 8,000 hotel rooms had already been planned out for that weekend. They had been canceled. The reservations there is just one example. And a lot of this is, we talked about that they claimed that there's this voter suppression law going on, and part of it was, we want to make sure that minorities are well represented in this, and then they went and took away an all-star game from a primarily minority-run area, small businesses and all that, and people didn't understand. Like, do you realize what you just did? We saw the amount of money that was, planned to be, estimated to be lost from this, and so I think this is huge. I think this is a great first step here. Alfredo Ortiz, who is one of the representatives in this lawsuit, had this to say about the decision. He said, quote, Major League Baseball robbed the small businesses of Atlanta, many of them minority-owned, of $100 million. We want the game back where it belongs. It was a knee-jerk, hypocritical, and illegal reaction to misinformation about Georgia's new voting law, which includes voter ID. Major League Baseball itself requests ID at will call ticket windows at Yankee Stadium, Busch Stadium, and at ballparks across the country. Small businesses have had contracts relating to the All-Star Game and other events 2 years of planning, and all of that was ripped away by fear and misinformation spewed by political activists. And it continues on from there. I think he's spot on. This was 100% a knee-jerk reaction, but should we really be surprised from Rob Manfred? I mean, what has he done to show that he would ever make the right decision? It was an unacceptable decision, I thought, from the start for a lot of that reason. And in case people didn't think that was real in terms of the small businesses, 2 years of planning for this, and it was completely ripped away, an estimated $100 million taken away from them, and he absolutely did the wrong thing. We talked about it, and he continued in his statement talking about other places that have even more restrictive, if you want to call it that, voting laws, Denver being one of them. They talked about it in other states like New York, for instance, and just kept on going from there. And so it was a big-time decision. I think Rob Manfred caved. That I think he's spineless. He heard it from a few people. He heard it from a few politicians, and that's all it was to get him to do that. So it's unfortunate, but I would like to see this lawsuit through and see what comes from it. Will Rob Manfred actually think to himself, maybe I should put it back? because there's already been a disaster so far from that decision. So I think it's a big first step. People want to take action against injustices like this, because this is what it was to a town of the city of Atlanta and that ballpark and everybody surrounded and affected by it. And then on top of it, which they didn't even mention, you've talked about small businesses that were trying to survive through a COVID era here, and then on top of it, expecting over $100 million of influx, and it's ripped away. I can't imagine the feeling. It's got to be lonely and desperate. So I hope that they do end up finding a way to battle hard against this and see if they can't get that back in Atlanta where it rightfully belongs. So I thought that was a positive step in at least attempting that, as we are now just over a month away from the All-Star game, believe it or not.
From what we've learned about Rob Manfred and the way his organization, his group of people run Major League Baseball, I don't know if I see them moving the All-Star game back to Atlanta.
Yeah, I think it would be a massive, and I'd like to see what the reasoning would be.
Yeah.
Oh, because we figured out.
Got us.
Yeah, I mean, what's he going to say? And so that's why. So you don't want to, I can't go back on what I said and all this, even though we looked like an idiot.
If you look at it, I think if that happens, you get lawsuits out of Denver and the Denver area, Denver proper. I could see Major League Baseball trying to hush this up as quickly and as quietly as possible. I don't see this ever going to court. I see that Major League Baseball getting with their lawyers and the lawyers of the group that's presenting this lawsuit and being like, all right,
saying something like, hey, we want to help out Atlanta.
What number can what acceptable number south of 100 million looks good enough that we can donate to this charity or that charity, or let us settle this outside of court.
Which is why, if this group is as serious as they sound,
absolutely,
I hope they don't fold with that and be like, yeah, we'll settle with this number. No, we want the game back.
Absolutely,
that's how you can fix things. You put the game back and let all of our small business owners know they're going to get that money.
How far in advance do they have All-Star games? Like, do we know the next 2 or 3?
I don't know off the top of my head. I want to say you usually know the next year that I think is planned for that. In advance. I think the next year of for the location and all that stuff. But I don't know. I don't think it's like 2 or 3 or anything like that.
I think Dodger Stadium has it next year.
Yeah.
But
so you know the next one.
But I'm not sure about 2020. I don't know if 2023 has been determined yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see Major League Baseball settling outside of court, and I could see them saying, okay, you caught us. It's probably not the smartest of moves on our part. So you'll get, we'll settle outside of court and we'll give you the 2023, because 21 and 22 were locked in, but I think 23 is still to be determined. So I could see him doing that. I could see him coming out and being like, yeah, sorry, here's some money and here's a in the future date. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm not a big fan of Manfred. So
no.
So I learned today a report from John Rothstein out of CBS Sports. Oklahoma State is set to host Xavier in the Big 12 Big East battle upcoming. The dates have yet to be announced, but probably looking at December, I'm guessing, is when that's going to be, because the Big 12 SEC Challenge is middle to end of January, I think is when that is. So Oklahoma State set to host Xavier. Villanova at Baylor, UConn at West Virginia, Kansas at St. John's. I think both these conferences missed out huge, because you got Texas at Seton Hall. It should have been Texas at Marquette.
Yeah,
Marquette at
we need a Shaka Smart revenge game.
Right. Texas Tech at Providence, Butler at OU, Iowa State, Creighton, Marquette at Kansas State, and TCU at Georgetown. Xavier is one of those teams you think solid Big East basketball.
Mm-hmm.
You think, oh man, it's like you mentioned, it's like a Marquette.
It's
a Marquette matchup.
Yeah.
It's something that if you can pull out a win against Xavier, it's something that's going to look quite well on a resume.
Yeah, I remember specifically that Marquette game. Oklahoma State played some of the best zone defense that we've ever seen. Like, it was, and Marquette had acted like they'd never seen it before.
What the hell's going on?
I was like, wow, they dominated that game. So yeah, it was cool to see. But when you said Xavier, that's a team. Maybe not as much late, but in the past you've thought of when you thought NCAA tournament, March Madness, that type of thing.
Certainly my childhood.
Yeah, exactly.
Ever since I was a kid, 29 years on this earth, Xavier has always been right in there.
You said Villanova Baylor.
Yeah.
Now
that's going to
be a game.
That'll be the game. Mm-hmm. That'll be, and I think it's Xavier or Villanova at Baylor.
Wow. Yeah.
Now that should be played in Dallas.
Yeah.
Play that at a neutral site.
Yeah.
Play it somewhere in the middle of the country where teams can easily get half their fan base there. But think about it, man. We'll have full capacity
Can't
basketball arenas.
Cannot
Villanova Baylor is going to be one of the biggest matchups of the season.
Yeah, that'll be a wild matchup.
Absolutely.
Jared Butler, by the way, declared for the NBA draft.
Not surprised.
Not a huge surprise.
Not
so
surprised.
He won't be returning for that one.
Probably should have been declaring as the Big 12 Player of the Year, but I digress.
Yeah, it'll be I think a solid career for him ahead, and that's certainly a matchup I can't wait for. And yeah, OSU Xavier, that'll be a good one.
Not
That'll
bad,
be a good one. This has been the Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. That's Zach Lancaster, and I'm Patrick Wheeler. We'll be back tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Tom Dorado will join us on Wednesday. Until then, everyone have a fantastic Tuesday evening.